Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media, Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. Don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. Also, by the way, well, a couple things. One, the John Keim Report is presented by AAA. Two, don't forget ESPN has the personalized app. So if you want to go into the app, you can sign up you're a Commanders fan, you want to get Commanders news. Doing SC for You videos 3 times a week. So I'm going to have one up on probably, well, like I said, 3 times a week after games, leading into games, and then one during the middle of the week. So that can be it. That's, like I said, it's an SC for You as part of the personalized app. So go sign up for that. All right, so a couple more things. One, don't forget my boys at chubbyshorts.com. So you can get this shirt. I'm having a picture of it now, obviously at the Commander's facility. So here's a picture of it. So you can see that. Anyway, chubbyshorts.com/Keim, get $10 off when you go into there, and you can get shorts, you can get, the shirt, you can get, swim trunks. All that stuff is on there. chubbyshorts.com/Keim. All right, so let's get to the stuff today, because this is the midweek report, and I want to just kind of go over some injuries and things we heard in the locker room and just kind of getting you ready for the rest of the week. It was the first day back at practice. Oh, by the way, I have one more thing, and I apologize. I will get to the good stuff in a minute. But for you Gold members, the private Zoom is now Thursday at 7:30. Got something else on Friday, so I have to do this Thursday. So 7:30 on Thursday for you Gold Zoom Gold members, do the private Zoom. And then for everybody, for the other members, for club members, for selected club members, on Sundays, on game day, I will be doing a private chat for you. So that'll be probably about 10 a.m. On Sunday morning, getting you ready for the kickoff and the rest of the games, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be done on every game day. All right, now let's get to the report. So I'm going to go over some health, talk about Terry McLaurin, talk about Noah Brown, talk about Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, the running back situation. In fact, let's start with the running back situation, because I think that's one of the big, more intriguing things to look at with this offense right now, because we don't really know how it's going to go. Last year you knew, okay, Eckler, third down back, can do more than that. He's not just a third down back, but that's his primary role. And then you also had, of course, Brian Robinson was going to be the guy that would carry the ball most of the time. Well, how's it going to shake out this year? So I think there's a couple of things to note here. One, let's not go crazy about depth charts at this point. So I know I talked a little bit about it yesterday, but I wouldn't go crazy about that, putting Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt fourth. I do think Bill certainly has a chance to be active and play on Sunday. So I'm not going to go by that depth chart. I wouldn't, if I were you, I wouldn't do that either. What I know is when you watch practice, he's not always the last guy in the group, right? Working. So, that's always something you kind of like look for clues or whatever. That's something to note. You don't know what any of it really means. So I think I would just say, be careful with the depth chart stuff. I'm not going by that. No longer. I never really did, but I do think that, certainly has a chance to do something. I'm telling you, the big thing that I go back to, and I know I've talked a lot about this, because I'm still always trying to figure out, well, they only keep typically 3 running backs active. So last year, for example, in 17 games, they used 4 running backs active. They kept 4 running backs active 1 time. So now they also didn't always have 4 running backs on the active 53-man roster. Early on, Rodriguez was on the practice squad. Has he done enough to just leapfrog everybody else and get up there? So that I don't know. So I think, like I said, what I'm going to go back to is first of all, they drafted they drafted Bill, right? They drafted him. Secondly, they like his cuts. He has good violent cuts. That works well in this offense. That 27-yard run he had in the preseason game, it's one run, and I don't want to go crazy. I'm not going to go crazy on one run, because we don't have a lot of body of work to really. It's been hard to really get to know where is he really at, because he did miss all of last year except for one game. He did not play at a high D1 level, or he did when he got to Arizona, but that was one game. So he didn't face that SEC, Big Ten, whatever gauntlet, or of a Power 4 program gauntlet, to really get a better feel. But you saw the traits for sure. And I think that's something you go back to. And I would look at some of those runs where that 20, is he going to be the next coming of somebody? I think this is still a running back by committee situation, but I'm just trying to look at this whole thing and just decide where it's going to go. Because I would say I've been all over the place, because you start to, you hear things, you see things, and then you kind of forms like, okay, you're trying to put together clues with this whole situation. And sometimes you just get more clues. And so anyways, I wouldn't be surprised if he has certainly some kind of a role on Sunday. And I asked Dan Quinn about the running back situation on Wednesday at during his press conference. The only guy he mentioned was Austin Eckler, because I think that's the one guy you know what his role is going to be. He's going to be the third down back. He can definitely do more. And it's funny, I was going back watching some of the Commanders game against the Giants in the second game last year, watching a lot of what the Giants D line and all that. But one thing that jumped out is like there were 3rd and 1 calls going to Austin Eckler, 3rd and 1 going to Jeremy McNichols. The threat of Jaden Daniels allows them to do different things on 3rd and 1 with the non-traditional short yardage back, because you can clear out holes with the threat of number 5 running the ball, which is what they did on a couple of occasions. So keep that in mind. So so then with Jeremy McNichols, he'll be active because of special teams. He's he's a wing back on the punt coverage team, right? So like that's something when I was so I think that's something that they like with him. And again, Rodriguez, did he do enough to be, is he going to be the 4th running back? I think there's still more to be learned. I think you're trying to get a good feel for the situation, but and I apologize because you're probably like, what you're saying today may be different than last time because you get more information. That's why. So always, if I get more information, things will change. Like I'm not the guy putting the guys out there, so I'm allowed to change based on what I know at the time. And I think it'll start to become a little bit more clear. But again, I'm not putting a lot of stock in that fourth spot on the depth chart at this point. Then I think you look at, and again, then you look at right guard, Nick Allegretti. On the depth chart, it was Nick Allegretti or Andrew Wiley. What I do know is that Nick Allegretti worked there all summer. I also know that Wiley was you could plug and play at multiple spots this summer. It was left guard, it was right tackle, and it was left tackle. So would they really want to put him in at right guard after, just for basically this week? And then helping to face Dexter Lawrence, because Lawrence moves all over in that front. He's going to play 3 technique on the right side, 3 on the left side. He's going to line up over the center, but I think you need some strength in there to be able to handle him. And Allegretti had to face him last year at times, like he and Biotish certainly did, and he in the second game did a solid job. So anyway, just something another thing to watch for sure there as well. So. Now, let's get to the health, because that's also a big key. And I'm going to start with Noah Brown. And actually, you know what? I do want to read the injury report, because I think it's just for a couple reasons. One, just so you know, like what's going on. But like Zach Ertz did not practice on Wednesday. That's going to be a typical Wednesday for him. Dorrance Armstrong was limited with a knee. Noah Brown limited with a knee, and I'll get to him in a minute. Jonathan Jones limited with a hamstring. He's missed some time here. And then Matt Gay was full, and then Marcus Mariota full. So, but I bring up Noah Brown because we did talk to him. He said, asked him how he's feeling. He said he feels great, and said, do you feel like you're back to yourself? I feel great. I feel good. I feel ready to go. He said that twice. So he feels good. He feels ready to go, but he was limited. And what I also know is Dan Quinn was asked about having Brandon Coleman, Terry McLaurin, and Noah Brown back. And when he started talking about what it meant, he only referenced Coleman and McLaurin. Now, was that on purpose, or was it just a slip? Dan Quinn is fairly intentional and pretty good at what he does, but we'll find out. What I did ask, one thing, it is good to have Noah Brown back, but we don't know yet how much time he will be able to play. And then when Quinn talked about like Deebo Samuel, they talked about him playing the Z. They talked about him playing, running back. He can play slot. So, McLaurin was talking about, Terry McLaurin was talking about that, and just the benefit that gives them. So if Brown isn't ready to go full, then you still have a guy that can play out there, and you can mix and match. You can throw some Jalen Lane in there or Luke McCaffrey, but Jalen Lane certainly showed more this summer. But Deebo gives you that flexibility to then move some other guys around. But one thing with Noah Brown, he talked about how, like, at least with Jaden Daniels, they have some banked reps. But the one thing I did ask him is, keep in mind, don't forget, like, he signed at this a few days before this point last year. Like he really didn't work with them going into the season, and he was able to go out there and have a pretty good year up until he hurt his kidney. So I did ask him, like, how different is it this time around after having that year in the system and with these players?
Oh yeah, light years ahead. I mean, it's the thinking is completely out of the equation now. I know the offense very well, and I'm confident in what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from the huddle, and I'm ready to go out and execute.
So there you go on Noah Brown. Now for Terry McLaurin, I asked him if he was going to be on a snap count, and the one thing he kept saying is he feels great, he feels ready to go. Like, I mean, you're going to get that, but he looked very, very upbeat and optimistic, very Terry-like. It's nice to see that guy back and no longer the hoodie with just kind of hiding from everybody. But so he said he's going to communicate with the coaches throughout the week and just let them know how he feels. I would, his conditioning feels pretty good. I don't know that he's going to have to be on a snap count, so to speak. Last year they did rotate too, so it's not like he played every snap last year as well. I think that, but I don't know that with Noah Brown out, you're going to want to do that too much. But you can go to some different sets with this group. Shoot, you could put, honestly, if you wanted to, you could go to two backs, and then you could go McNichols and Eckler, and you could put Debo out there, you could put Ertz out there now, and you could go two tight ends with Debo as the receiver, and you have a bigger lineup, but you got some multiple things you can do because you still have multiple receivers in that group. So you could be a little bit creative with what you want to do on offense if you have to kind of move on from a couple guys. I will say, like, the one thing with Noah Brown and McLaurin, it really would open up that deep game, but also the underneath game for McLaurin for Debo Samuel. But that's where I go back to what McLaurin was talking about with Debo Samuel, where like he felt like he could be more of a downfield threat than maybe he was in San Francisco, just because of how he's being used here out of the slot. Maybe he'll be asked to do a little bit more of that than he was there. Not like he was coming from a bad offense, or certainly not from a bad offensive coach, but maybe there's just few little differences you can do with him here to make it work just a little bit better. And I think the other thing with that, if they are able to have Noah Brown for the game or for however long in the game, he is a very good blocker. And it's funny because when you watch them play, like, they will do different things. They love that pulling action. More often than not, obviously, guard, tackle, pulling. Sometimes they'll take two tight ends and pull them from the left side to the right. They'll line them up behind like the tackle and guard, and they're going to pull them to the other side. Last year they would also pull Noah Brown at times and use him as a lead blocker through that hole. So they do different things, but that's because of what he is able to do. So he's an important part to get back. And what they need him, though, is to be healthy. And if this knee continues to bother him, that's a little bit of a concern for me, just because it's something that happened this spring, and then it was supposed to be okay, and then he had to miss a lot of practice time this summer. So I think they're going to probably be a little bit more cautious with him, just to make sure that he can, that this is a long season and you need him out there. So see what happens there. Also with Dan Quinn, a couple things he talked about today: creating identity. And like, you can look at what last year's group did. This is a different group. And one of the things that he talked about, how he did say that last game last year kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But what he wants to do is I think this team has done a good job of not looking back to last year and looking back at like, hey, this is what we did last year. What Dan Quinn has talked about is like really looking forward, and like, it doesn't want to sit there and compare this team to last year's team, because it is a different team. Even if you have a lot of the same players, guys are different. Jaden Daniels is a different quarterback than he was last year. Now, the chemistry can be very good and very comparable, but the team is different, even if a lot of the same guys are back. And I think and as he said, people would ask him, like, how do you replicate that? He goes, I don't want to replicate it. I want to build on that. And that one thing he said that struck him after the season, when he and Adam Peters sat down with the potential unrestricted free agents, is how they wanted to come back and why, and how they felt like they liked what was being built here and they wanted to be a part of it. And I think that's what has really kind of buoyed this franchise. And it's where it's very, very different than it was before. I mean, I'm telling you, like, I feel like I'm in a different city covering a different franchise with this team, because it is dramatically different. And that's a big part of it. A couple years ago, no matter what outcry there would have been, you're not getting a Bobby Wagner, you're not getting a Zach Ertz, you're not getting a Von Miller, you're not getting Austin Eckler. Like, that just wouldn't have happened. Certainly not all of them. Maybe could you have gotten one? Maybe. I kind of doubt it, but then but certainly not, you're not getting all of them, and they are key members here. And I think the other thing is that one thing that was very clear last year, and it's been very clear, is how this is a team focused more on day to day than what happened last year, what's going to happen. Somebody asked Quinn about like what would a good season look like. I think it was Scott Abraham. Shout out Scott. I think he asked him like what would a good season look like. And to Quinn's credit, it's a question that you're going to ask a lot of people, right? But for him, he's looking at basically what does a week one look like. Now he's able to say, okay, like if you do this and you can have be bold and aggressive, then the season more often than not things are going to go well. That's a little bit more general, but he's not going to sit there and give you a win total and all that. His focus remains on the Giants, just like last year after they beat the Giants in week 2, I was always struck by what he said after the game, which was that wasn't good enough. And I was really kind of impressed by that because it really spoke to knowing, hey, this game you win, but there's a bigger picture ahead. And if you want to do better than this, you've got to be better than this. But they were very good at staying, the old expression, be where your feet are, be where your game is. That's where they were at. So I think that's still the case. And then we talked to Jaden Daniels, and one of the things that it's funny because like this is a guy who's just never ever bothered by outside pressure, outside noise because he doesn't pay attention. In fact, somebody asked him about like the expectations here and like does he talk to veterans? Do they talk about like how you manage it? He's like he doesn't talk to anybody about it because he said I don't pay attention to it. So and some guys say that and you just know like well that's not true. Like you'd hear guys in the past say well I don't read any stories. Then back in the day, they used to have these clip files of stories like stapled before the internet, and they put them out, and you'd see that same player who said he doesn't read the clippings about him reading the clippings. So like there was always guys like that. With Daniels, I flat out believe that he doesn't pay attention to it because it just doesn't matter to him. Just like with all the fame and attention that came his way in the offseason, he wasn't bothered by any of it. He didn't seek it. He didn't sit there and revel in it. Instead, he went to work because, as he said, like what you did last year doesn't matter anymore. It's what you do this year. It was beaten into him mentally by his father that, it's all about consistency. It's about consistency game to game, season to season. So just because you had one great season doesn't guarantee you a second. You've got to still work for it. That's Daniel's mindset. It's why he doesn't pay attention to the outside expectations. And then somebody asked him, does it add more? Last year had more pressure. It's like, no, you still have to go prove yourself. That's been the mentality, not just of him, but I think of this entire team. And it's why going into the season, you can feel pretty good about where the mindset is, if nothing else. Anyway, folks, that's it for me. I'll be back with another episode on Friday. I will also have a game preview for Saturday, or not game preview, I'm sorry. My 5 thoughts will come out on Saturday. Typically, I'm not going to do as many during the week. I'll probably do 4 or 5 during the week, or during the week, probably about 5, I think, including a live stream. Oh, that's the other thing. Live stream on Tuesday will be with Bram Weinstein. I'll give you more information on that, just like we did all of last year. So